Hi friends, welcome back. So we got some new inflation data today. That is the PCE. I want to go over what's going on with that and the market and economy as a whole. So let's just jump right in. You can see here stocks were up. Essentially, inflation data came in about as expected. So people are like, yeah, we're going to get that Fed rate cut in September. So right now the market's betting on a 90% chance of a rate cut in September. One thing that I'll say with that is you really got to look at the data to kind of understand what's going on, because if you just look at the overall data, say okay, inflation's right where we need it, it's around 2.5%, it's going in that down direction, you guys can see, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it doesn't necessarily have to hit 2%, which is their goal. It just has to be going in that direction, and they can start thinking about cutting rates. And for those of you who really want rate cuts, there's a lot of people out there who do. You may get it in September, but I just want to say not so fast, because there's a couple things in the data that are really worth pointing out. So first, again, this is inflation data, the PCE. It says good prices, and this is month over month, fell 0.2%. Okay, so goods are coming down in price a bit, it says here, but the keys are actually services increased, and this is often tied to labor costs. Okay, the other thing that's interesting, and they increased 0.2%, and it's actually interesting because it directly corresponds with the number here. Personal income rose 0.2%. Okay, so in your neck of the woods, maybe your salaries are going up, your wages are going up, right, month over month, but your costs are going up more than your salary. So for example, housing related prices in June rose 0.3%. So again, your income's going up 0.2, but your housing is up 0.3, so more. And then also too, you have this, spending increased 0.3%. So you can literally see in the numbers that our wages / salaries aren't keeping up with the costs. And so this is the real problem with inflation. So even though the overall headline is like, hey guys, inflation is cooling a bit, I think for the regular people, maybe you're and I don't know, it all depends on your industry or whatever. And the question I posed, did you get a wage increase, and did it keep up with the costs, right? Do you feel like you're better off, a year ago or now, or depending on what kind of raise you got? But at least according to these numbers, costs are going up higher than people's pay raises. Also want to mention this as well, as spending held relatively strong, the savings rate decreased to 3.4%, hitting the lowest level since 2022. So you can see, guys, people just aren't saving quite as much as they were before, probably struggling with, again, the discrepancy between income and the cost of things. You also have this, which is really interesting. This is actually in Florida, because housing, we always talk about this as like it's a big part of inflation. It's like your daily life. You got somewhere to live. In Florida, they're calling this a nightmare scenario, what they're having there. And I'll read it to you. It says, Florida's housing market is seeing nightmare scenarios as buyers back out due to affordability concerns. So basically, you say you're going to buy a house, and you shake the hand, and you're like, okay, let's do it. And this is in Orlando and Tampa, so the metro areas. But they said here, 21% of the home purchase agreements were canceled in June. If anyone's in Florida and real estate market, like to hear this, if you've been seeing this kind of stuff, are there a lot of cancellations? I mean, at least according to the data here, was like 1 out of 5 are being canceled. And the quote is actually interesting when you read it. It says here, we're seeing a nightmare scenarios where deals are getting canceled at the least minute for the most minute reasons. At the least minute for the most minute reasons. And this says here, buyers often back out during the inspection period because they find something they don't like, but affordability is really the underlying issue. And when the person writes it that way, I'm thinking, maybe the person got cold feet. It goes through the inspection part, and you're just kind of like looking away to get out of the deal. It's just like, this is too much money, or maybe something changed at work, or who knows, any number of reasons. But again, one of the 1 out of 5 deals are falling through. The other thing that's interesting too, this says here, home price in the USA rose another 4% in June, hitting a record high of 442,000. So housing market has yet to cool. Prices are still going up, but again, wages are not quite keeping up with that. There's another interesting thing which I want to point out. This article, it says here, why so many Gen Zers and millennials have, and the quote here is, money dysmorphia, even if they are financially better off than they realize. So the basic gist of it is, if you're feeling lots and lots of stress, you may be doing better than you think. And one of the things is that, I'll give you a definition for money dysmorphia. It says, quote, a negative and unrealistic perception of one's financial wellness or financial position. And one of the explanations, well, they give two explanations, but one explanation is that you spend all of your day on social media and you see all of your friends taking, awesome vacations. They're buying the Lambos, they're buying houses all the time, or, they're doing something. And actually, true story. Now that I'm thinking about it, I have a friend who just got a new job. He posted on social media recently, and then they just bought a house. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I think they moved. But anyway, I literally just thinking about how I thought about that, and it seems like all the time, yes, someone always going on vacation because we're in vacation season. But the thing is, though, is like if you didn't see social media and you didn't see what other people were buying all day, every day, like you wouldn't necessarily feel like that you have to be spending more. And so one of the things that I always mention with you guys is like do what makes sense for you, because you don't know another person's situation, right? You don't know if their family gave them a whole bunch of money, say for the down payment on said house. Like for example, in the situation of my one friend who just got a job and then just bought a house, and I was like, okay, so how does that work out? Because it was like I want to say I think he was looking for a job for a year, because I remember you'll see people post on social media that I just got fired and I'm looking, and then that's why the when he said he got a job recently, that it was it was big news, because like I was happy for my friend that they got a job, and then I was surprised that suddenly they just bought a house like a week later. So that seemed like, wow, that's really fast. So so like I said, you never know someone's situation. You have no idea, and that's why just worry about what's going on with you, and you may be better shape than other people, or just you can't compare to other people. They get help from their family, or they could be heavily in debt. You just don't know. And it kind of reminds me of like, this one was a funny thing where you just don't know what's going on. We'll use the example of inside the pool. This was the headline: "The dirty secret of Olympic swimming. Everyone pees in the pool." I didn't know that. I never thought about that before. And I want to read some quotes, and I want you to sort of associate this with like, you never know, what's going on with people's financial situation. You never know who's essentially peeing in the pool. These are quotes from the Olympic swimmers here. It says, "I've probably peed in every single pool I've swam in. That's just how it goes," right? I didn't know that. Another person says, "The world changed for me. Every time I went to a pool after that, I only consider myself to have swam in it if I peed in it." Another Olympic swimmer saying, "I always have to pee because I'm so hydrated." So basically, I guess what it is, they drink a ton of water, but before they go into the pool, and then then you're putting on like really, really tight swimsuits, right? And then this is another funny quote. It says, "You never want to swim through the warm patch." And I guess that's a 4-time medalist. That's Colin Jones said that. And another person says, "I can actually pee as I'm swimming, which is kind of a gift. It's definitely a skill. And moreover, you're crop dusting everyone. That's just foul." Meaning that when you're peeing while you're swimming, you're kind of spraying everyone with your pee. So I know it's funny and it's a silly story, but the point being though is that the same with, you don't know what's going on with other people's finances. You don't know how many people are swimming in the pool or where they're swimming in the pool. And the joke that they said with the pool thing was like, if you do it, just be away from other people. So the thing with the money dysmorphia thing though is like, the more you're on your Instagrams and Facebooks or whatever, or Twitters, like you just feel like everyone's buying a car all the time, and sort of the more time you spend away from that stuff, the more better you'll feel about yourself, because you don't feel like you'll be buying all the time. So trust me guys, I trust me, I really know. My wife looks at Instagram all day, every day, so I always know what's going on with her friends. Like I always know who's buying what, who's going where, etc. But that's just part of the world that we have to live in. And for me, how I deal with it, I just don't worry what other people are doing. I just essentially or my friend buying a house, I just feel happy for them, and hope everything's working out well. But I don't feel like I have to go out and buy a house today, right, etc. I don't have to match your friends what they're doing all the time. Here's an example of more stuff going on in the news, which I think is interesting. Here, Apple's iPhone drops from China's top 5 as local foes rise. So I mentioned before, we're talking about inflation data where people's wages aren't necessarily keeping up with the cost of things, right? This is an example of, say, in China, to where Apples have always been a premium. It doesn't matter which country they sell, and they're even more so of a premium in China. And so these days, people can get a pretty good phone. Maybe not as good as an iPhone, or maybe equal, right? But it turns out, because why spend that much on iPhone? We don't have to. So at the moment it's like 6th place in China. And I mentioned this because I mentioned it several times actually when we ever bring up this subject. There's people out there that tell you, hey guys, everyone's going to buy your Teslas because Teslas are awesome, etc. And they ignore companies like a BYD. It's the same way, like, say with Apple, they dominated for a long time. I remember there was a time when people used to wait outside the Apple store to get said phone because it was like the coolest thing, the best thing, and you would pay premium for that. It's still a good phone. I have iPhones. I always mention the iPhone thing. I have them. But I'm well aware there are other companies actually like, Xiaomi, Honor, Oppo, Huawei, and now Vivo, which I don't even know what that is. If anyone's ever seen a Vivo phone, please let me know. But this is showing like the change in rankings of the phones. And the iPhone was in 5th place for a while in China and is now, I guess, 6th place is what they're saying is how you, yeah. Actually, it fluctuates. I'm looking at the chart here. Last time I read it was 5th place, so I guess it shot up to number 1. So that was like just last year. Okay, yeah, 5th place must have been around the last time that we checked, and then now we're here. So I'll be curious if more brands jump ahead of China. So again, they're in 6th place in China. The other thing too, which I want to talk about with you as well, is like every time I look at the news and I try to explain to you guys what's going on in the market is how things change, right? So Apple's situation has changed, and also Disney's situation has changed, and I want to explain this one. So we actually went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. It opens up here earlier in Korea than what you can see it in the USA. And it's doing pretty well, right? You can see here, was it 65 million in a couple days in international box office. If you want to hear my thoughts on Deadpool, this is on our other channel. We decided to do a movie review for fun. This was, you can see it just did a couple days ago, so you can check that out, either spoiler review or non-spoiler. But the reason I mentioned this is because there was an article that really sort of, how can I say, offered some really interesting data on the changing demographics. It's something that is very relevant to something like a Disney. Now, there's a lot of people out there that like hate on Disney all the time and go woke, go broke kind of stuff. But in fact, it's actually not really that of why Disney is struggling. It's just that there's not enough kids anymore, and the generations are different. So just think about it logically, guys. When Disney used to have those crazy commercials, and it's like I'm older than, I don't know how old people are watching this, but I'm 49, and I remember the generation above me, Walt Disney would have like these black and white sort of, that's the right word to say, introductions to the different programs and stuff like that. And Disney was like a fantasy place, and everyone wanted to go there. But that was a time when people were having more kids, right? It was different. So today people are having less kids, and I got this chart up here. So people are having less kids, right? And kids are actually watching YouTube these days. So they're not growing up just watching Disney content, because back then Disney had a monopoly on child content essentially. And then there's way more children. So now you have less children and more competition in that space. And now kids are just watching YouTube. And then if you grow up watching YouTube or say Netflix, you don't necessarily grow up with Disney characters or the influence of Disney advertising, for going to said thing. And so it's actually interesting. It's no wonder then why, and that's why I'm bringing up Deadpool Wolverine, is that now Disney is like really targeting adults. This is an R-rated movie. I think it's the first R-rated superhero movie from Disney, and I can tell you it's definitely R-rated. So has a lot of foul language, a lot of violence. I probably wouldn't take kids to this. I wouldn't recommend it. And it was interesting. I was thinking about this that when I was remember that they made this. It was actually a few years ago. I remember that they were floating around an idea of an R-rated Star Trek done by Tarantino. He actually finished the script, and he was pitching it to everyone as being Pulp Fiction in space. And they were actually, the studios were all willing to go in on it. It was actually basically Tarantino that pulled out. For him, he just didn't want this to be his last film, which is a shame. I would have liked to see an R-rated Star Trek, because why not? I think he said is like mostly just going for like heavy gore and fighting or whatever, and he wanted to do it with gangsters. So chances are Time Machine kind of stuff, and it would have been with the Chris Pine and isn't that guy named Zach, the one who plays Spock? I think Zachary. I can't remember his name. He was in Heroes, but the most recent cast that they were talking about doing a fourth one. Is it a fourth one now they're at? That last one was terrible though. It wasn't that good. But anyway, I wanted to mention that because why are studios pushing more R-rated content? Because audiences are different that go to the theaters now. That's older, right? Usually you don't spend a lot of money on an R-rated movie because if you're going to make a blockbuster movie and spend a lot of money on it, you want to make sure the biggest audience that you can go to it. But if there's less kids and maybe you feel like that your audience is adults, and that's what they're doing. So we'll see how this one does. I think the first Deadpool or a couple Deadpool movies did pretty well in the box office. I think this one will probably be a big hit. I won't spoil anything, but if you do want to see the spoiler review, you can see what we think about it. And I was thinking about this as well. When again, this is adjusting to changes in market, like how our companies are adjusting to new audiences and changing demographics. The Olympics is adding a break dance. They're calling it breaking, I guess, to the Olympics. So this is Team USA. We have a breaking team. I have no idea how this is going to play out. I think it's probably going to be similar to figure skating or gymnastics, where you do some sort of routine and then they score you on difficulty and your timing and what kind of moves you got to do. I guess it's gonna be like that kind of thing. And I'm not into the b-boy stuff myself, but the Olympics is losing its appeal, so they got to figure out a way to get people through the doors. Essentially, is what we're talking about here. And if you want to talk about the most popular stuff these days, all the kids are watching. Basically, I just pulled up a screenshot of TikTok. It's literally just people dancing. I worry though that, and this is something, and this kind of relates to the market and just overall, I just worry our population is becoming more, I'll say a nice way, we'll just say not as smart. Honestly, I consider like all this TikTok stuff like really, really dumb content. And now roughly the same kind of stuff is like going into the Olympics. And it's like, oh my God, is this what the world's coming to? But I guess it is. That we have less kids, and then the kids growing up today are watching this kind of stuff, TikTok. Maybe I'm just getting old and I need to get with the program and start watching more TikTok. Or maybe I'm old to where like I really want an R-rated Star Trek, but there's kids these days that like don't like Star Trek at all, which I completely understand. This is a very old franchise, and in fact, I'm happy with new materials, new IPs, this kind of stuff, and I hope that we get new stuff. But I think the kids today aren't even going to the theaters like they were, the same way that necessarily watching Disney. They're just watching YouTube and TikTok. It's a different world that we live in. I mean, you guys, we chat every day about what's going on in the world, say on YouTube. It's different because, and just my opinion, this is, I guess, different than TikTok. I purposely do these things every day with you guys uncut, and I just share opinions on this stuff because because I occasionally watch, I say really, seriously, occasionally, occasionally I watch the American TV news, but a lot of it is very superficial. They purposely pick two people who are going to argue about something like that's considered entertainment. And oftentimes too, everyone's shilling stuff. If you've been watching my channel, I'll give you a simple example. If you've been watching my channel, I think maybe it was 3 months ago, something like that. CNBC needed to find somebody to pump Tesla, right? Because it was like, hey, it's Tesla time. We gotta, find someone who doesn't like it, find someone who likes it. And the person they picked to be on the pro Tesla side was someone who was a money manager, right, over like a private equity. But they didn't even have Tesla in their holdings. They had like a little bit in their personal holdings. We don't even know how much. So it was like really ludicrous that they had this person come on TV to promote Tesla, but as a professional money manager, they don't even promote it to their own clients. So that's an example of how like fake stuff can be on TV, and sort of, at least in my opinion, why I think people watch YouTube. They feel things are more authentic on YouTube, etc., which I would agree. I like when I go through all this stuff every day with you guys, I just try to tell you like honest truth and opinions and look at numbers. I honestly don't watch the TV stuff at all, so I don't really know if they're showing you this kind of numbers or not. If they're showing you that personal income is lower than spending and lower than housing, I don't know. I do know though, probably the government's probably not going to tell you that. I mean, because from a political / government perspective, you want to show that inflation is going down. And I guess probably too from the stock market perspective / if you want to use the word mainstream, you can. They probably want to tell you everything's going great as well, but the kind of people that are on TV are generally out of touch with just regular people on the street. And that's just sort of how it's been like that for years. So that's sort of why I try to show you guys the best I can what I consider good data, and how to look at it and how to understand the world, and don't pee in the pool. Anyway, please share your thoughts on any one of these stories. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next video.